So I'm Chris Trumbauer. I've been asked by County Executive Pittman to be the chair of this advisory committee for the Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park. And it's an honor to do so. I believe that County Executive chose me or asked me to do this because I've got a fairly long history with the property. I know many of you in the room, but for those of you that don't know me, I was a former council member from Arundel, District 6 from 2010 to 2018, and the Crownsville Hospital Center was in District 6, the district that I represented, and I was actually on a state task force several years back at the time that looked at, the state formed it in the legislature saying what should we do with the hospital center, which had been abandoned many years before. The primary outcome or conclusion of that task force was to dispense the property to the county. Unfortunately, at that time, the county leadership did not want to take possession of the hospital center, and so nothing really happened until recently when, as we all know, under the second term of Governor Hogan and the first term of County Executive Pittman, they came to agreement to dispose of the property from the state side and put it into county ownership. So that's why we're all here today. It did take a while to get all the I's dotted and T's crossed where the deed was actually transferred, but it is in fact a real estate possession of the county of Anne Arundel at this point. And the county is being very deliberate of what happens with this property. So the first thing that I think everyone realizes is that we created a park. So the property is now Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park. We did that for a couple reasons. One was to kind of set our intention that we're not going to develop this into a lacrosse stadium or a big high-intensity use, that we do want to preserve it and be true to its cultural and historical legacy. So our good friends at the Department of Rec and Parks now have a new 485 acres to be concerned with. Thank you, Director Lays and your team. That's a very nervous smile if you can't see her face. So what we're going to do today is I'm looking at this a little bit as a kickoff, but also a bit of a get-to-know-you session. We've got a lot of talent and a lot of brains in the room where we're going to be working closely together over the coming months. And today I felt it was important to come together in person, but I think largely our work can be done virtually going forward, maybe with periodic check-ins in person. Just to kind of get the band back together. So I wanted to start by doing a little bit of introductions. We're going to keep that to the actual advisory members, just for the sake of expediency. I know we have some other interested parties in the room, and we will have a chance for public comments and introductions at the end of the meeting, but I do want to keep us on task and keep the introductions to the actual members of the advisory committee. Before I do that, though, I do want to introduce two key staff members that are here. One is to my left. Mike Stroud is the project manager. He is a DPW contractor. If you don't know Mike, he's fantastic. He's really sunk his teeth into this. If you were on the optional tour beforehand, he was our driver and tour guide. He's going to be doing a little presentation later, and you'll get to know him better. The other person is Hannah Dyer. Hannah is a Deputy Chief Administrative Officer for the county. She's the lead staff, and she's already done a ton of work on this and will continue to, I'm sure. So thank you, Hannah, and thank you, Mike, in advance for all the work you'll be doing for this committee. So with that, I'm going to go down the list, and I'll call on folks to introduce themselves from the committee. We're going to start with Councilwoman Lisa Rodvian, but unfortunately, Councilwoman Rodvian wasn't able to join us today, but she will be at future meetings. If you don't know Lisa, she's a two-term county executive or county council member from District 6. And is really looking forward to being a part of this, which brings us next to State Senator Dawn Guile. I know you're here, Dawn.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Dawn Guile. I represent District 33, Central Anne Arundel County, which includes the Crownsville area. Just really happy to be part of the committee and look forward to the work that we're going to be doing here to honor history here, very difficult history here, but at the same time making something that they'll make a positive impact. So I'm really excited to work with you all on
Great. And joining Senator Guile, we have two representatives from the different delegate districts that make up District 33. We've got Delegate Heather Bagnall is here from 33C, and I joked earlier what the C stood for, and you can tell everybody.
It said C stands for Crownsville. I'm Delegate Heather Bagnall. I'm previously represented district-wide with redistricting, now 33C. I'm also the chair of the Arundel County delegation and the chair of the Public Health and Minority Health Disparities Subcommittee in Health and Government Operations. And this has been a passion project of mine since I took office, working with a number of the nonprofits that are on the site, as well as working with the Say My Name ceremony to create a memorial and fund that, and also to ensure that that we are meeting the original intent of the site, which was to be a place of healing, recognizing the challenge of history and making sure that we honor and represent that as well. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you. And then her colleague, we have Delegate Stuart Schmidt is here with us as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I've done a number of charity work here, especially with the food bank the last 13 years through the Anne Arundel County Realtor Association, and then also worked with the Blue Ribbon Project as well through Keller Williams, our real estate office. So excited to be a part of the committee, and I guess B stands for Beautify Crownsville. So excited to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic. And joining us from the governor's office, we have Larry Walker here.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Larry Walker, as you heard today. I am the Executive Director for the Governor's Office of Community Initiatives, which is located in this building, right on this first floor. So I'm glad to be here to help be a voice in what happens on this property.
And thanks for partnering with us to host our meeting here. Very convenient. None of the facilities on the actual Crownsville property are suitable to host a meeting like this yet, but that's what we're striving for. Next, from the newly created Anne Arundel County Office of Equity and Human Rights, we have Asha Smith.
Hello, everyone. I'm Asha Smith. I am the director of that new office, and I'm honored to be here to serve.
Great. And a long-term friend of mine, a former, I think, or maybe still active member of the Anne Arundel County NAACP branch, we have Jacqueline Boone also here. Jackie, you're in here somewhere.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really glad to be here. I serve as the president of the Arundel County NAACP and former president now, but currently I'm the second vice president for the Maryland State Conference of the NAACP and a former employee of Crownsville Hospital Center. So I'm glad to be here and be a part of this so that I can share my experiences here and my experiences that I've had with this particular culture as it began. So I'm glad to be a part of this.
Very good. We're glad to have you. Is Dr. Brown here, Pam? She might not have been able to join us.
She's not. I've just texted her, too, to see if she's on her way, and I haven't heard.
Okay, well, if she's not able to join us, Pam Brown is the executive director of the county's Partnership for Children, Youth, and Families, and we'll have her introduce herself if she is able to come later. And then I also believe that Isabel Firth, Izzy, is not able to join today. She is with the Maryland Commission on Civil Rights and sends her regrets, but she will meet us all at a future meeting. We do have Scott Himes with Crownsville Conservancy.
Hey everybody, Scott Himes, like you said, 20-year resident of Crownsville, lifelong resident of Anne Arundel County. I'm pleased to be part of this. We focus on keeping green space in small communities. We're countywide now. One of the things that really hardens about being involved in this is my mother recently passed, Val Himes, worked with Chris years ago on when they were trying to figure out what to do with this place. So it's very nice to be part of this. I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
Great. And then we have Joyce Rosenkrantz from the Generals Highway Council of Civic Associations.
Hello, I'm the director of GHCCA. We have a long history of championing the acquisition of the hospital grounds by the county and a long-term interest in protecting protecting the watershed, green space for everybody, and rehabilitating buildings that serve our veterans and our those in mental needs of the greater community of Anne Arundel. So we have a lot of things to work with, and we look forward to working with everybody. Thank you.
Super. And then Allison Taylor from Kaiser Permanente.
Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Taylor, and I'm with Kaiser Permanente, but formerly with the Maryland Department of Health, and I staffed the task force that Chris served on several years ago. I'm here representing the infrastructure subcommittee, which has been very engaged so far, and of course, the work of that subcommittee is going to depend on the recommendations of this group. So we'll be taking all of that back to SC's department.
Very good. And then we have one county ex officio member, and it's very appropriate because it's Christine Anderson. She's the CAO, and she runs the county government, so nothing really happens without her being on board. So having her on the committee is a very strategic move. So.
I don't think that I can say anything else besides that. I do want to thank everyone who has volunteered their time to serve on the advisory committee. We really appreciate all of the different voices, and we need to give them for the success of our future projects that we want to do here. So thank you all.
And then I want to thank, in aggregate, there's several county department directors and other staff and interested parties that are here participating. Thanks everyone for coming. As I mentioned, there will be a chance for public comment at the very end of the meeting. So what we're going to do next in a minute or two is I'm going to turn it over to Mike, and he's going to kind of do a broad set the stage overview of where we are in terms of the county taking over the property and what we see going forward in immediate next steps. But I did want to set a little bit of the expectations on what this committee is charged with doing and how we're going to operate. So the first thing is I want to focus on one particular word in our name, and that is advisory. So we are an advisory committee. I think we're a very empowered committee because, as you could see, we've got a diverse representation from a lot of different perspectives and expertise. And I know that the county executive personally and the administration as a whole are very interested in what our recommendations and insight will be. But I do want to be clear that our group as a body does not get to decide what happens on the operational sense for the Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park. But we get to advise, we get to make recommendations on what should or shouldn't happen, and I know, as I mentioned, the county executive is very committed to working with the local community, with the various stakeholders, to make sure that we achieve a consensus vision going forward, because this is a generational opportunity to make a big difference in 485 acres of land in the heart of our county. In fact, the county executive likes to call it the green heart of our county, the green healing heart of our county. And I take that to my heart when I think about our vision. I want us to be very deliberate and thoughtful about what we recommend. I want us to think in the long term, because I can tell you nothing is going to happen quickly. But the decisions that we do make, the recommendations we make, and the decisions ultimately that the county and partners make are going to affect generations to come in Anne Arundel County. So not to put the pressure on us, but we're kind of a big deal, and I want us to realize that before we get into it. So we're going to talk a little bit later about the structure of how we're going to work together and scheduling future meetings and things like that. But before we get into the nuts and bolts, I want to turn it over to my colleague Mike, and he'll walk us through some overview about the property and tell us where we are in the master plan stage and all kinds of fun stuff like that. Oh yeah, I can do that.
Thank you, Chris. If any of you attended the town hall a couple months ago, these slides will look somewhat familiar. We've updated with a couple of recent action items. If you go to the first slide. Sorry, this one got jumbled. This is our timeline. The timeline, of course, goes further back in the history, but this is focusing on when the county kind of got involved. And you can see it starts back in 2004. And then it cascades to now when we took ownership of the property in December. Next slide. This is just a general overview. Folks who aren't, some folks are very familiar with the property. Other folks might have a little, overview of it. The full parcel is about 500 acres. We do have 2 easements on the property, the environmental easement and then the historic easement. The historic easement encompasses most of the front of the building and the administrative building on the front. We can do work in that building, but we have to, work with MHT to tell them what we're going to do. This is unique in the utility side that we do have a water treatment plant and we do have a wastewater treatment plant on the facility. When this was a full operational hospital, those were key to providing utility support to the hospital. Next slide. Yeah, this is the major tenants that we have. Several are familiar with. We've mentioned before the food bank, Cadenza House, and Hope House. There's a couple of other smaller nonprofits that are also involved in the property. This is a good map to kind of give an overview of the total property. You can see the black line designates the parcel outlines. The Winter Road Complex, which is right next door here, 41 Community Place. The county's owned that for a while, so that's not new to us, but it does become part of the overall Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park. You can see the 2 easements that I mentioned, the historic easement at the front where the administrative buildings are, and then we have environmental easements on the southern part of the property, and then across 97 we have the existing Bacon Ridge natural area.
I'll mention, I think everybody got a larger map, a printout map. So it's very difficult to put something up on the screen and scale enough where you can see anything. So if you want to look at that map and if you have questions when Mike's done, we can answer specific questions about different components of the property.
Yes, this map we often refer to as the inventory map, and this came from the state. As you can see, each structure has a designator up to 76. And that's helpful for us because some of these buildings went by several names or they changed over the years, that sort of thing. So when we're talking about a building, it's a lot easier to use its numerical designator. Yeah, so we do have, since we've taken ownership of the property, we do have a lot of activities ongoing. We understand that some things hadn't gotten a lot of attention in the last couple of years, some of the roads, some of the stormwater, that sort of thing, so we're kind of touching those up. Security issues, that's been, since the state's had it, it's always been an issue. We're looking for ways to enhance the security with cameras and shoring up buildings, that sort of thing. The master plan consultant, so that's the big event that we have coming up, and that is very close to kicking off. We have the final signatures on the contract, and we'll be awarding that contract to the consultant that we've gone through the RFP process with, and they'll be on board hopefully next month. And we would like to, maybe not the next meeting, but the following meetings, we want to bring them on board, have them brief their plan to you, their schedule, what they're going to be doing for the next year or so. We want to get you exposed to that, and we also want any comments that you have for them to hear those and listen to it. So that's coming very soon, and that's a big milestone as far as the planning process for the overall campus, getting the master planner on board.
Mike, before you move on from that, and understanding that it hasn't been finalized and signed and everything, but can you talk a little bit about the bigger picture scope and what they will be looking at and what how they will be interacting with the county and this committee to deliver?
Sure. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of meetings like this, a lot of stakeholder meetings, a lot of larger public meetings like the town hall that we had. Their initial plan, and they haven't finalized it because they're not under contract yet, but the initial plan that they proposed on had 3 kind of major stages. It was broken into 3 different parts. The first part, they're going to just be collecting data, analyzing data, everything that we've started, the building condition assessments, the environmental site assessments, anything, all the state data that we have, we're going to turn over to them. They're going to start kind of digesting that. Then the second part will be when we ramp up the meetings, they're coming to committee meetings, that sort of thing. And then finally in that second part, they're going to develop a draft master plan with all of the comments, everyone's input, and that will be detailed and it'll be distributed and we'll get comments back. And then the final step, they'll finalize the master plan for distribution. So that's their initial plan. When they're here, they'll have a much better breakdown of what's going to happen when and that sort of thing. But that's the overview, Chris, of once they're on board. We do have a lot of, like I mentioned, the structures, the electrical infrastructure, water and sewer, that sort of stuff we knew we could get started on ahead of time. We didn't have to wait for the master plan consultant. So we have had other consultants on the property analyzing the buildings, doing environmental site assessments. The electrical infrastructure, we know that needs some attention. So we've kind of already gotten started on a few of those things. And those will be turned over to the master plan consultant, and we may, distribute them once they're on board. The Central Services has done a great bit of artifact collection over the last couple months, recording and storing. They're going through all the different buildings and collecting, the obvious stuff that may have a purpose later on. So they've been going through that. Hannah, I don't know if you got anything else on the oral history or ongoing with those sort of things.
Sure. So the oral history project is, sorry, I'm in the back here.
Hannah,
many
it's
of you
Sarah.
probably are familiar with Janice Hayes Williams, who's the county's going to be contracting with her to lead the oral history project, collect some of the stories from people who worked or lived at the facility, and that's going to be in conjunction with the state archives and other educational institutions in the state, so something to look forward to. And then the civil rights stories. This is an interpretive marker through Visit Annapolis that we're partnering to have a temporary location to be as part of a larger civil rights project that they're doing.
And then before we move on from this, you talked about the artifact collection, and I know we have Susan here from Central Services, and she gave a couple examples to those of us on the tour earlier, like the church pews and things. Would you give just a few examples to the group so they can get an understanding of the kind of things your team are collecting?
Sure. Hi, Susan Carroll, and I'm with Central Services. And so I will say there wasn't a whole lot left from the state, but we did go through the building with planning and zoning, Jane Cox, who is responsible for cultural resources. And there's just a couple of the guys that work in the maintenance department found the actual sign. And that is actually a hairstyle, like a hairdryer, an old-fashioned hairdryer. So there were a couple things, pianos and some fixtures. And what we did find, we are pulling out, we're putting into storage, and then hopefully, if Mr. Pittman's vision of a museum comes to fruition, those things can be placed in there. So sometime Jane probably has way more pictures than I do. Maybe sometime Jane can come and give us some examples, further examples. But these are just examples of just we had on our travel. So we found dormitory stations. So in the housing, there were sort of like any other dorm room where they had like a mini closet and that was attached to the bed. And so a lot of those things that were sort of built in were remaining here. And then things that, they just couldn't move out, chairs and pianos and things. And so we tried to get what we could that we thought had historical significance and to preserve.
Thanks, Susan. Appreciate it. Some other ongoing activities. We do have the cemetery across Farm Road, across 97. They have a smaller memorial plaque and stone there. We're looking to expand that. We're working through the design with the site designer to get it set up in the right place, and working with the Maryland Historic Trust to get there okay. But that's moving forward. We hope in the next 6 to 9 months to have that installed over at the cemetery site. And then trail access, we know that's been brought up several times through community feedback, and that's definitely on our radar. We're looking for some sort of opportunity to make a connection. It's logical to connect the two sites somehow for easier access, so we're looking into that. As mentioned, 41 Community Place, which is right next door, was part of the Winter Road complex that the county owned previously. It did house the police CID center for several years. That's kind of the detective branch of the police department. They were moved to a different facility in Millersville, so it's been vacant for a couple of years. but it's a good opportunity for a short-term, near-term improvement to the campus to make it a nonprofit incubator. And I think that's really it. This is our general comments. If anybody wants to send something, you're thinking of something, and you want to shoot us an email, that goes to a group of us, and that gets logged in our overall spreadsheet where we're recording all of the input. That's all I have.
Does anybody have any questions, any committee members, questions for Mike on the site or what he was just presenting?
And we can go, if we want to go back to the map or any other slides or anything like that, let us know as the discussions progress. We can definitely touch on it. Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple of questions. Okay, well, a question about two big questions. Can you just describe the easements and the purpose of those easements a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, if you can go back to the. We don't. One of them, the historic easement, is in. It's almost complete. That one's sort of in flux with the Maryland Historic Trust. The details of what we can do and everything, it's still kind of being worked out. We do know that if we want to do anything in that area, the Maryland Historic Trust has to be involved. We have to get their okay, that sort of thing. The environmental easement in the southern part, that one's encumbered recently. The hash, the green in the lower level, and then the Bacon Ridge was already encumbered in environmental easement. But as far as the restrictions or anything, I don't know, Chris, if you have any.
Well, they're fairly standard and similar to the restrictions on the Bacon Ridge natural area. So the easement itself, I believe, is held in partnership with the MET, Maryland Environmental Trust. So what that means from a practical sense is if the county wants to move forward on anything within that area, we essentially have to get permission from the easement holders. And that includes even a non-paved natural surface trail. And as our friends in the Department of Rec and Parks can tell you, it is a somewhat arduous process to make that happen, even though it's one of the county priorities to get some trail networks in place because that's low impact and passive use. It's a very deliberate process that's going to take some time. So again, you're hearing me say, don't get your hopes up that things are going to happen immediately. That's just the way this is. But I did want to also point out that part of the parcel is actually on the southern end of Hawkins Road, and this is completely, I think, undeveloped. It's just a forested area. There's no structures that I'm aware of on there, and it's bisected by the road there, and a lot of people don't realize that that was part of the disposition as well, and so the easement is also on that. And this hashed area is largely forested. I think some of the area might still be used, or at least is a reserve spray field for the treatment plant. But this oh, that is carved out. Okay, so this is largely forested with a few streams that go in there and topography. There's a lot of hills, and so it is ecologically sensitive. And even getting trails to weave around there will probably be a little bit of a challenge. You said you had more than one question.
It was one question about both of those. Thank you.
Anybody else have questions for Mike while we got him up in front of the lights? He's a great resource. All right.
As I said, we have the email address at the end. If you think of anything, please shoot it to me. We've gotten a lot of interest from the town hall, and then also follow-up interest, and then interest before the town hall. So the comments keep coming in, and they get recorded, and I try to respond as quickly as I can. A lot of the responses we're very early. We're in the first steps. That's to come. That sort of thing. Yeah. Thank you. Get the lights.
Okay, well, thank you, Mike, for that presentation. That, I think, sets us up very well for the next discussion, which is largely subcommittees. So we are the named advisory committee. We were formed by an executive order that the county executive, Pittman, signed. You can find a copy of that executive order in your packet. You can see what our charge is and what the makeup of the committee is obligated to be, and several whereas clauses that provide insight and context. But the way that I envision us doing a lot of the work is through our subcommittees. And the makeup of our advisory committee, we have several, we have some elected officials, we have some at-large members, but we also have what we expect to be the chairs of 4 subcommittees on our advisory committee. So going forward in our future meetings, I envision that a lot of our role will be report outs from the subcommittees and then synthesizing their different insights and research into the bigger picture, helping give them direction, helping answer questions, and then serving as a liaison with the county executive and the administration. So also in your packet, you will see that we've got the 4 proposed subcommittees. Again, we're calling them proposed, even though some of them may have already taken some initiative and gotten together themselves because they're that excited. But one of the outcomes of this particular meeting is I would like to formally create those subcommittees and designate chairs. And don't worry, we have recommendations for you all. But if you see this sheet in your packet, I just want to go through them a little bit. The first is our cultural history subcommittee, and this should be obvious, but this is very important because this site holds a lot of history, some good, some bad, and we want to honor that, and we want to make sure that we do our due diligence and bring in the right stakeholders and the right perspectives. So Jackie Alsup is our chair, our proposed chair, rather, for that subcommittee. And we've got again, proposed committee charge. I'll read it out loud. To provide guidance on the cultural heritage, interpretation, and commemoration of the history at Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park, including the cemetery, and to provide advice and guidance on the redevelopment in the Maryland Historical Trust easement area. And I think someone mentioned this earlier, but one of the county executive's visions going forward is that we will have some sort of either museum or cultural history site or something that will have artifacts and remembrances and storyboards and some way for the public to learn more about the history of the site. We don't know quite what that will look like, where it will be, or the full scope, but we know we want something like that. So that is our cultural history subcommittee. And what I'd like to do is read through all of these, and then we can have a discussion, and then hopefully entertain a motion to create these formally. Next, we have our Health and Wellness Committee, and we did see Pam has joined us. So Pam, we did introductions earlier. Do you want to stand up and give us a little bit about yourself, please?
Hi everybody, I'm just supporting for my letters. I'm Pam Brown. I'm the Executive Director of the Partnership for Children and Families, which is attached to government, but is actually the Ministry of Health. Our role is really planning and finding gaps in services. Personally, I've been doing community needs assessments for probably about 30 years, and I've worked in health and human services my entire career since I was 22. So it's absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you, Pam. So our Health and Wellness Committee, our proposed committee charge is to provide guidance on the health and wellness services and programming offered by the county and local nonprofits that will best serve Anne Arundel County residents at the Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park campus. And we certainly have a lot of work to do, but what we envision is that the area of the map that kind of had that historical easement, some of those big institutional facilities, certainly we see a future where some of those could be renovated and repurposed and used as some health and wellness outcomes. We certainly know there's a need in the county, and we're looking forward to seeing what we can create there. Next is our Infrastructure Committee. We have our proposed chair of Allison Taylor, and Allison, during her introduction, reminded us of her former role when she worked for the state. So I think she will be very good at this. The infrastructure committee really is going to look at the built environment that's there and what it could be, and that includes the utilities, right? There's a lot of pipes and wires and things that are kind of old in various states of repair and disrepair, and we're doing an assessment for that right now. But their committee charge is to provide recommendations for improved utilities for the benefit of all Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park users and in line with development plans, to provide recommendations for modernization of buildings to be rehabilitated, and to provide input on buildings to be demolished and general maintenance and upkeep of buildings, grounds, and roadways. And let me just say, this will be a fun one, because I'm pretty sure that we will have the full gamut of perspectives of people that saying you shouldn't demolish any of the buildings, you should leave everything the way it is, and then we will have some people saying let's get rid of it all and start over, and spoiler alert, I think we'll end up somewhere in the middle of those two, but that is going to be a big conversation. Because I think you saw on the map there's 76 current structures, at least until the next hurricane comes through. Okay, and then our final subcommittee is Recreation and Parks. And this one also is important. Scott Himes is our proposed chair for that subcommittee. And that charge is to provide guidance on the development of recreation and park amenities on the Crownsville Hospital Memorial Park property, and the use of the property within the Maryland Environmental Trust conservation easement areas. And for those familiar with the property, or maybe those who went on the tour, you saw that I believe there are 3 active fields. They are used. They're not the most heavily used fields in the county, but they are used for tournaments and other events. And we would like to continue a recreation component on this property going forward, but how much and at what level is certainly within discussion. So those are our 4 proposed subcommittees. This structure has been vetted by the county executive and by the CAO. The administration feels that this will be very effective, and these are the kind of groups that we're looking for. But I wanted to see if committee members have questions or want to clarify anything, and then we'll take a motion to form these. Everybody feel good about this? Anybody have any concerns with the proposed charges for the various committees? Fantastic. All right, then I guess as chair, I will seek a motion from a committee member to form the 4 committees as described, and to appoint the 4 proposed chairs, which for the record would be Jacqueline Boone Alsep as chair of the Cultural History Subcommittee, Dr. Pam Brown as chair of the proposed Health and Wellness Subcommittee, Allison Taylor as chair of the proposed Infrastructure Committee, and Scotty Himes as chair as the proposed Recreation and Parks Committee. Do I have a motion? So moved by Delegate Bagnall, and a second? From Larry Walker. And all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nays. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. We have ourselves a subcommittee structure. So as I mentioned, the subcommittees, some of the members have been very excited and may have already done some work. But my expectation is that what we will have at each of our meetings is a report out from each of the subcommittee members or the chairs. They may bring questions to us, or they may bring outcomes, and that will be part of discussion for our future meetings. So this is great. Step 1 is complete. We've got folks to do some real work and bring it to us. That brings us to item 5 on our agenda, which is schedule of future meetings. So I'll say the reason that we're all sitting here now is because I felt very strongly that our first meeting should be important. I will also say, having come through the pandemic and the big disruption and kind of quantum shift, that people are really used to virtual meetings now, and we've got some very busy and important people on our committee, and so I want to make it as easy to participate as possible. So what I intend, or what I propose to you all, is that we're going to start off with monthly meetings, at least through the end of this calendar year, and then we can see how that goes, and we may decide that we could meet every other month. But I think for the remainder of the year, we can do these virtually by Zoom. And I'd like to do monthly meetings in October, November, and December. I think for the sake of the group, it's usually easiest if we kind of pick a recurring time. I will just throw out, we're all here right now, so if this kind of works for people generally, we can just plot them out around this time and date for the next couple months. But I wanted to throw that out to committee members. I know that once our General Assembly session starts in January, things get complicated for several of our members, which is why I'm taking it up to December as one block. But how do people generally feel about this particular Thursday each month, meeting virtually now, or October through December? Does anybody have objection to that? Okay. Then what we will do is Hannah and Mikkel will put some dates on calendar invites, and we'll send out a Zoom invite, and we will make sure to get agendas to you at least a week in advance so that you have the ability to add things or ask questions about the agenda. So that is progress as well. Okay, so this brings us to the participation point of the meeting. Thank you, committee members, for joining us and to listening through our spiel. Is there anything any committee member wants to discuss as a group before we turn it over to public comments? Delegate Bagnall.
Just 2 points of clarification. The schedule that we're discussing is for the group as a whole, but the subcommittees will still have.
Subcommittees, yes. So the chairs are now official, and they are empowered to set their own subcommittee members' meeting schedules. Some of you guys, you want to meet every week? Knock yourselves out. You want to meet once a month? That's okay. I would do it at least a week or two in advance of our advisory meetings so that you're able to do some of your work and then bring those report outs to us as the advisory committee. But yes, we will. The committee members, the subcommittee chairs are empowered to conduct their subcommittee meetings as of this point forward.
And my second question is, how will those subcommittee assignments be delineated? How will we know what subcommittee we're on, or do we have the option of putting ourselves forward for a particular subcommittee?
So four of our members as the advisory committees are the chairs of the 4 subcommittees. So they are an established committees. If any members of the advisory committee want to participate in a particular subcommittee, I'm certainly in favor of that. And I would say pick your poison, approach that subcommittee chair, and tell them you want to be part of that. And then I'm sure they'll find a way to accommodate that. Just don't stretch yourself too thin. Any other questions or comments from committee members? Okay, great. So then at this point, if we have anybody in attendance that's not an official committee member but has a question or comment, we will certainly entertain that. Are there any questions from stakeholders or attendees in general? Wow, fantastic. Okay, so then before we adjourn then, I do want to remind everybody, and it's still up on the screen, we are seeking comments and feedback, not only from who's in the room and who's on the subcommittee, but community leaders, interest groups, stakeholders, crazy idea people, whoever it is, right? Like, we are cataloging everything, and we want this to be an engaged public process. The county executive feels very strongly about this. So please tell your friends and share Crownsville-park-comments at aacounty.org. There is a landing page on the county website that has this information, and that we will post updates from our advisory committee work. I think we haven't decided yet how much detail to put up there from subcommittees and things, but we can tackle that next time. But this was a great start to what will be a marathon effort. I want to thank you once again for your time, for making the trip here. It will be easier going forward because we can log on Zoom. But I think this is a good group, and I look forward to working with you all. You did have a question?
Yes, my brain was just processing it. It didn't come right when you said that. My name is Joy Howard. I'm a founding member of an organization called Bloom, where we create access
Hannah, do you want to maybe take that one?
Yeah, so we are working.
Here, come on up to the mic because we've got it on the recording too.
Okay, that's a great question. And we are working on figuring out a way to get the catalog of comments divvied up between the subcommittees or the advisory committee, wherever it's best directed, so that they can be considered by the right body.
In progress.
More to come on that, yes. But as I'm sure you can expect, we've gotten a wide variety of comments, some that aren't really appropriate to go through the committee or the subcommittee, and some that are. So we're just figuring out how to sort through that.
And we did always intend to funnel into the committees, but because we literally didn't officially create them until like 7 minutes ago, we didn't want to be too presumptuous. But they will definitely be a receiving area for those comments. So, great. All right. Well, with that, this is great. It's 12:59. Oh, okay, Jackie. Don't blow us over 1 o'clock. We're getting close.
Yes, anyone who's interested in serving on the Cultural History Committee, please.
Absolutely. Open invitation for the Cultural History Committee from former Crownsville Hospital Center nurse Jackie Alsop. Very good. All right. Well, with that, I'll thank you again, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion from Delegate Schultz and a second from in this general area from Larry Walker. All those in favor, aye. We stand adjourned. Stay tuned for your email for schedule of the next meeting, but it'll be around about 30 days from now. Thanks, everybody.